What's up guys, Gypsy back here today bringing you the team builder and match for my week 1 in season 3 of the CPC. This week we're going up against, to start things off, we're going up against a guy called Andrew coaching the Manhattan Mudkips, and as you can see you've got his team up here to the right on top, and he's got a pretty threatening team. He's got Volcanion and Thunderous T, which immediately I recognize as two of the biggest threats to my team, as well as Mega Gallade, which while it's not as immediately threatening as something like Metachamp, can really pose a threat once it sets up an SD, so that's something I've got to watch out for. He's got a pretty interesting team for sure. He's got Smeagol on there, which could be definitely a problem if it's a lead Smeagol. Setting up webs versus my team, although webs don't really affect my team that much, but because I have quite a slow team this week. But setting up like multiple hazards, setting up spikes is going to be annoying definitely versus my team, because that's not something I plan on using mons that require to be at full health to be able to live certain hits, so that's definitely going to be annoying if he's able to set up spikes. Stealth rocks aren't really too much of an issue, but setting up like layers of spikes is definitely something I'm going to want to avoid if possible. So without further ado, we'll jump into the team that I've brought this week. First up, we've got a pretty bulky offensive Scizor. Now this Scizor spread looks pretty standard, but it's mainly here to tank hits from the Thunderous T if I need to. I can tank a T-Bolt, like a +2 T-Bolt, and U-turn out into an appropriate switch in if I need to. But mainly it's here to take on Tyrantrum, things like things like Mega Gallade. I can tank a close combat with ease and then just U-turn out, get the slow U-turn off. The key is the slow U-turn. Like his switch into Scizor will most likely be his Volcanion in case I'm like a setup Scizor. You might want to switch in his like speedy Volcanion and get a flamethrower or something like that. So the aim with U-turn is to pivot on his switch into Scizor and switch into an appropriate counter to that Scizor check. And I can always sweep late game with SD Bullet Punch. SD U-turn's pretty nice as well. Like I said, if I SD and then I scare him out into switch in, I can just get a fairly boosted U-turn off and go into something like Cure him. So that's Scizor, pretty standard. With max HP, like even though I don't have much defense investment or any Spadef at all, it's still really bulky, just purely by virtue of Scizzor's natural bulk, as you can see there. So 236 Spadef and 318 defense. So yeah, a really bulky solid mon and a really hard hitter with adamant max attack. So next up we have Sylveon. We're bringing an offensive Sylveon this week. It's going to do a lot of work to his team. He doesn't have many responses to it. He can switch in Volcanion, but that's a one-time thing. A lot of mons will get OHKO'd by the max special attack Pixie Plate Hyper Voice. That's something I am trying to capitalize on. If he's not running, he'll most likely be running Poison Jab to hit Tangrowth, but that means his coverage is likely not going to have Leaf Blade for Quagsire, so Quagsire becomes a better check to it, as well as Scizor. I'm not really going to stay in on a Mega Gallade with a Sylveon anyway, but Sylveon's just really solid this match. It passes wishes to things like Kyurem and Scizor. If they get weakened too much, it can pass wishes to Quagsire and Tangrowth, and he'll bell off status for the team. So pretty like a nice offensive check to a lot of his team, and a nice cleric at the same time. So that's Sylveon's job. Next up we've got Kyurem. Kyurem is a pretty nice switch into Volcanion because resisting its dual stabs by its typing. Enough speed to outspeed. I believe I was outspeeding Tyrantrum, max speed Tyrantrum, and then the rest in Spadef, just to ensure that I do tank hits better from the Volcanion. I can roost up pretty comfortably on it. I do have lefty, so I'm quite a bulky Spadef spread. Just with his massive HP stat, he takes hits really well from the Volcanion, and I can roost him out, scare him out with the potential Earth Power, and I will have hazard damage to kind of capitalize on that scaring out of Volcanion. Next up we have Quagsire, here to check a Dragon Dance Tyrantrum, here to check a Swords Dance Gallade, barring Leaf Blade. Obviously that's something I've got to watch out for, I've got to scout for. But we have Mega Scizor for that, and we have Tangrowth as well as Drapion. So Quagsire is just really solid overall. As I said, he does have a lot of physical threats, but with the combination of Unaware and the Toxic Spikes from Drapion, which we'll get to soon, he's just a really solid wall all around for his team. I've got Toxic for things like flying users who aren't affected by toxic spikes that may want to switch in, or if for some reason I don't get toxic spikes up on the field, it's just nice to be able to toxic incoming mons. I got Ice Beam for the Tyrantrum, and for the Thunderous T, if it wants to switch in, it does more than Scald. It actually does around 40% or 50%. It does a fair amount, so that's pretty solid. And Earthquake is just solid stab versus things like Thundarus, things like Tyrantrum, as well as a few other mons on his team. Obviously Recover for reliable recovery, and then we have Tangrowth bringing AV this week. The spread allows me to live 2 HP ices or +2 HP ice from Thunderous T, even if he's Life Orb, and the attack investment ensures that Rock Slide is a 2-hit KO on that thing. So because it is such a big threat versus my team, I have to have a couple of different ways to check it. His only way of reliably taking on Quagsire is if he runs Grass Knot, so that forces him to lose. He's going to have a little bit of move slot syndrome. If he's like a Nasty Plot variant, some more of a Breaker variant, which I would expect versus my team, you know, then he's going to run T-Bolt, Nasty Plot, who we forced to run Grass Knot to hit Quagsire, but then like Focus Blast potentially to hit Kyurem. It means he is walled by certain mons on my team, so that is quite nice, just having the sort of 4 move slot syndrome there. If he runs a Scarf set or a Spec set, he's a lot easier to check with something like Kyurem, or even Sylveon can tank a hit pretty well. And then last up we have Drapion. Drapion is a fast Drapion, fast enough to taunt a lead Smeargle if it's max speed. I can stop it from sporing me, unless he's Mental Herb, in which case that's a fair play on his part. But I don't think he's more likely to bring Focus Sash Smeargles. That is, the taunt Drapion, he may not know the Drapion taunts, and also like that's a big gamble, him just assuming that I bring a taunt mon instead of something that could kill him outright. So yep, and we have Toxic Spikes, as I said, for nice residual damage versus his team. We've got Earthquake for the Volcanion. We do outspeed naturally the Volcanion. We can get some nice Earthquake damage off. Our knockoff is really solid versus his team. It's just pretty nice overall. He's knocking off items is again very important. Knocking off the lefties, knocking off an incoming Thunderous who doesn't want to get hit by an Earthquake, and as I said, taunt for the Smeargle. So there's the team. Pretty basic team, nothing too crazy this week, but I feel as though it's necessary. Like I would have liked to have run a more offensive Kyurem, like a more physically based Kyurem, but I feel as though special Kyurem, I am still modest, so I'm still hitting like ridiculously hard versus his team. He doesn't have many switch-ins to this monster. Ice Beam is just doing a ton to everything, and what Ice Beam doesn't hit for super effective, the Earth Power does. I got Dragon Pulse as well there for things on his team that resist the Ice Beam or the Earth Power. So yeah, there we have it. I'll just pause it here and we'll be back with a match. Alright guys, so here we are with the match, and as I said in the team builder, my game plan is to lead off with Drapion in case he wants to lead off with lead Smeargle and get that taunt and then start stacking up those Toxic Spikes. So I'm just going to follow it. He's hidden Smeargle right in the middle, so he may be trying to make me think that he's not going to lead with it. I'm not going to take any chances. I'm just going to lead with Drapion. I do have switch-ins to all the mons he's brought, so as you can see, he has brought the Thundarus. He hasn't brought the Volcanion, which is interesting. He's opted to bring the Sharpedo over that, so I don't really understand that because I do have a lot of checks to Sharpedo on my team. But anyway, that's what he decided to do. So we'll jump into it. I lead off with Drapion as he leads off with his Thundarus. Now, interesting play. He could be like a vaulting Thundarus, but the fact that I have Quagsire makes me think that he's unlikely to go for the Volt Switch or go for the electric move in general. He's either going to lock himself, if he is Choice Scarfed, he's going to lock himself into something like U-Turn or maybe even T-Bolt. I mean, Volt Switch would make sense. I think U-Turn would be the better play, purely just because I do have the Quagsire. I also have the Stunfisk on my team as well, so Stunfisk is a pretty fantastic check to the Thunderous. So, you know, he's like, I don't see sort of Scarf Thundarus being a very good set versus my team, but I don't want to risk anything. Like Drapion does set up Toxic Spikes. While I could have taken one hit, if he was a spec set, I would have died. So I didn't want to risk that. We just go straight into Tangrowth. The designated switch into this as he fires off a T-Bolt. So yeah, very interesting play. I just opt to go for the Rock Slide here, as nothing he can do can really hurt me at all. That damage reveals that he's not like a choice spec set or anything like that. I just go for the Rock Slide here, getting a clean 55% off on the Smeargle. I can just go into Drapion now in case he wanted to. I didn't think he'd Spore there, obviously because I'm in with Tangrowth. I felt as though if anything he'd just get up his Sticky Webs, and the fact that I go into Drapion before Sticky Webs goes up means that I can outspeed him next turn and stop him from getting up his rocks, which is really nice. So now I can just set up spikes as he actually endeavors, which is a cool play on his part. Whittling my Drapion, but that's fine because Drapion, this is its main role, just to stop the Smeagol from setting up like all its layers and just setting up toxic spikes of itself. So I sack off Drapion here, and the reason I stay in is I click knockoff just in case if that Thunderous was a nasty plot set, and I switched out to Tangrowth on the nasty plot, I could have potentially been crit. I would have survived the plus 2 like hidden power ice or focus blast. However, I risked getting crit there, and it wasn't worth it. If I clicked knockoff there, then I potentially knocked off his like Zap Plate or Expert Belt. If he was Expert Belt, I got damage enough to put him in range to die from 1 rock slide. So I actually reduced the chance of having to rely on hitting 2 rock slides. It's just overall my best play. Drapion was worthless at that point in the match anyway, so now he just goes for the Focus Blast and he misses. Now this is unfortunate. However, Focus Blast was literally doing nothing. You'll see later on in the match what I mean about that. I get the damage off with Rock Slide, as now he actually switches out to his Bishop, and I felt as though, again, I'm in a situation where like I could go out to my Quagsire, but Quagsire is really necessary for the Tyrantrum. If I let it get weakened, then Tyrantrum could potentially run through my team if he's like banded head smash, so that's not something I wanted to risk. I just go for the Earthquake here after he takes the Rock Slide damage. He knocks off, does a decent amount. Even though he knocked off my Assault Vest, Tangrowth still comfortably takes on the Thunderous, because Focus Blast, as you'll see coming up, Focus Blast even without the AV does barely anything to the Tangrowth. But I do get a crit on the Earthquake. I do believe that mattered, because I'm not like max attack or anything like that, so that is definitely unfortunate. But his next knockoff was only going to do about 25% or so. Wasn't going to do much. I would still survive a Focus Blast in that range, I believe. As in comes the Thunderous now, and he does fire off a. There you go. You see, he fires off a Focus Blast there. It does 45, so it does under 50. So Tangrowth is still tanking 2 of those, or a +2, even without the Assault Vest. So that's pretty crazy. I get the Rock Slide kill on the Thundarus there. So Tangrowth has put in the work. Now Tyrantrum comes in. I have no reason to sack Tangrowth when Quagsire has a really safe switch in. Head Smash only does 25, so the fact that the Toxic Spikes are up are really nice, because it's just whittling down his members. Like his last remaining mons all get affected by Toxic Spikes, and I can basically just recover up here on the next Head Smash. I recover this turn, and now the fact that I've shown recover, like I could easily just recover again now, and he could choose to save Tyrantrum and switch out to the Mega Collide, and that's not something I wanted to allow. I didn't want to let him get a free switch in when I could easily just tank this next hit and Earthquake, provided that like it is possible he could switch out. He could want to save the Tyrantrum and switch out, so I didn't want to give him like a free comfortable switch into Glade, and Head Smash is doing nothing to me anyway. So that is why I don't recover that turn. It was just a smart play, because like I couldn't risk him switching in this with potential Leaf Blade setting up in my face and then killing me. So in comes Tangrowth, as Glade does go for the Leaf Blade. So I switch in Tangrowth just to scout, because now Tangrowth isn't really needed. While it does check like the Sharpedoes pretty nicely. This thing could have Poison Jab or Fire Punch. There isn't much point in keeping it around. If he stays in and goes for CC, then he gets this defense lowered, which means Sizzle kills Bullet Punch. So I had no reason to switch out here. Like, I'm just playing smart. I'm not trying to like choke and sack off. I can sack off things that I don't need. As Sylveon can kill at this range. Poison Jab. He's very unlikely to have Poison Jab. Purely because he has Fire Punch. So I don't see like why you'd run Poison Jab and Fire Punch, given that Fire Punch hits Tangrowth as well. So I felt pretty confident with just taking him out with a Hyper Voice there. There's now Sharpedo protects for some reason on the Sylveon. Like, even if he'd gone for the Waterfall there, Kyurem easily tanked any 2 hits and can just take him out with the Dragon Pulse. So we get a nice solid week 1 win versus a pretty threatening team. I definitely see Andrew going pretty far with this team. Like, I mean, all the teams in the league are crazy stacked, but the fact that he has Tyrantrum and Thunderous T, arguably the best electric type in the format, with such a threatening Mega like Mega Gallade and Bishop and Volcanion and then web support and Sharpedo, like, yeah, definitely a crazy offensive team. So yeah, you know, props to Andrew, he put up a good fight, but yeah, he just couldn't quite break past our team. So next week we go up against my man Matty Brolic, which is going to be a great match. I'm really looking forward to that. He's got a really threatening team himself. He's got the Thunderous Eye and the Weavile, as well as the Mega Metasham. So that's going to be really fun to go up against. And I hope you guys enjoyed. Drop a like. You know, let me know what you thought of the match in the comments. And if you're not already subbed to my channel, feel free to hit that sub button. And I'll see you guys next time.